Ready?
We're gonna wait 1 second while take a seat.
All right. You can start whenever. Okay. All right. Well, when we think of traditions, we normally think of animal tradition or human traditions and human culture. But do animals have culture of their own? We know they have genetic behavior that they're all born with, but can they learn and teach from each other and learn new traditions localized to their specific groups? Now, when I was doing some research on this topic, there were a number of different animal studies that could lead up to this strong evidence to lead up to this conclusion. In particular, both whales and dolphins had a couple unique specific traditions that I'm going to cover today. So my topic is whether whales and dolphins in these 3 case studies I'm going to present can be considered as traditions. First, I'm going to talk about dolphin sponging techniques. Then I'll switch over to humpback whales and their feeding technique of theirs. And then stick with humpback whales and talk about whale pop songs. Now first, bottlenose dolphins and their sponging techniques. Researchers have noticed that dolphins were breaking off pieces of sponges, attaching to their noses like some kind of glove when they were used for foraging. Not all the dolphins are doing this, only a certain kind. So a study was done by Michael Crutzen, professor of evolutionary anthropology and genomics at the University of Zurich. He took DNA samples of dolphins that were doing the sponging and dolphins that weren't doing and compared the two. And he found 2 different things. First, there was no specific sponging gene that all dolphins had. And secondly, there was a strong matrilineal relationship in all the dolphins that were sponging, which means they all shared a female bloodline. So with this, they theorized that there was one dolphin, which they termed a sponging Eve, that learned this behavior and then taught it to her daughters, and then taught it to their daughters, and so on. So that could be an example of a localized tradition in these specific dolphin groups. Next, I'm going to switch to humpback whales, and one of their feeding techniques is called a bubble net, where they work together in a social feeding activity to corral fish together and then eat them. But one whale was adding a twist to it. It would slap the water a couple times before it would start the net. The other whales weren't doing this. So another researcher wanted to see if this was also a learned behavior. It was biologist Luke Rendell, University of St. Andrews. He collected whale sighting data over 25 years, noticed that after 25 years there was a 37% increase in this method that they were using. And the majority of those cases, it was due to the whales being in close approximation to each other. So the whales that didn't understand it or didn't know it were in social contact with the whales that were, and they had picked it up. So that could be another example of a tradition being learned by these whales individually. And my last topic is whale pop songs. Now in the 1960s, scientists discovered that whale song had a unique structure and themes that were identifiable, and put together they could identify specific whale songs. Now they noticed in one set of whales off the coast of Australia, eastern coast of Australia, they were singing a specific song. They dubbed it the pink song up on top. And there was another group of whales off the west coast of Australia that had another song, a black song, that they termed the black song. And then after some of the west coast whales had swum over to the east coast. And what they noticed was that after a while, the pink song was gone, and all the whales had started singing the black song. And this was a study done by Dr. Ellen Garland, also at the University of St. Andrews. They noticed that the whales would tweak and modify the specific songs to create new songs that would then become the most popular songs of the local whale group. And that would seem to indicate that the whales have a specific preferences and cultures that they can learn of their own of these songs. Now, in my speech, I've spoken of three different examples here, case studies: the dolphin sponging, the humpback bubble nets, and the humpback whale songs. I hope this can show that traditions and culture may not be exclusive to humans, and how that might affect our worldview and our perception of the world. Thank you.